Welcome to episode 13 of the Chatting with Ingram series of podcasts. I'm Philip Ingram, and today I'm talking to Tom Sykes, who's a freelance cameraman with the BBC and ITN. And we're talking about how to improve the way that you deal with online video capabilities and online business. Warning, you might actually learn something. Good morning, Tom. The last time we met was a couple of years ago and under some very different circumstances to what we're finding ourselves in at the moment. Can you remember it?
I can indeed, yeah. We were filming for BBC Inside Out South outside Scriffle's house in Salisbury. And if I recall, they brought you in to talk about the planning on the ground for the attack. Is that right?
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, as a former intelligence officer, I've studied the Russians quite a bit, and the whole thing was absolutely fascinating. Who'd have thought that would have happened on our doorstep in Salisbury? But then who'd have predicted that the movie Contagion would be coming to life at the moment as we speak?
Exactly. I mean, it was. I spent quite a few days there, as you'd imagine, doing other filming and for national BBC News and things like that. And it was a fascinating, still is a fascinating story. And as I mentioned to you the other day, I think I don't think there's really been any follow-ups on it. It feels like it's gone awfully quiet, obviously with Brexit and now COVID-19. But I'd be fascinated to find out a bit more about if there's still any investigation going on and things like that.
Yeah, well, there'll almost certainly be an investigation still going on, but I think it'll have taken a back seat. And looking at the documentaries that came out afterwards, they repeated a lot of what we knew already, and they haven't really asked some of the questions that I put in some of my blogs on my Grey Hair Media blog site about some of the other things that had happened. And I've talked about this beforehand, but I do think that there was a second team, and there's been no analysis into that. And I do think that there's a pretty good chance, and I'm basing this on what I do as an intelligence officer, there'll be a pretty good chance that there's a more permanent Russian intelligence presence in the Salisbury area. But that's subject to a different story, I think. So one of the future, maybe. So you're a freelance cameraman. You do a lot for the BBC, but go on, tell the listeners to this podcast a little bit more about you.
Well, I've been working on and off in TV since '97. After training in Bristol, and I've dipped in and out of TV, mainly news. Came back to it fully about 6-7 years ago, and I work I'm based in the Swindon area, so I work for ITV regions in both that kind of cross over where I live, and also BBC Point West, BBC South Today, and I do quite a lot of stuff for network news as well. So I covered the first plane landing for coronavirus at RAF Bryce Norton.
Oh, okay.
It was a very long wait. Yes. And I've done quite a few days around coronavirus. And I took the step, due to some health sort of issues, I took the step to back away from filming.
Yep.
And I haven't done any news filming since. So that was quite a difficult step to make, but I wanted to obviously safeguard my own health and also make sure that I didn't jeopardise anyone else. But it's been quite a lonely, quiet time.
Yeah, but it's important. I think during these times, I see so many idiots that are out and about the place who are giving no regard whatsoever, and it's those individuals that are keeping the infection rate at a slightly higher level, and therefore elongating the whole lockdown for all of us by not just following the simple rules. But one of the things that drew me to your attention, which is why we're doing this podcast today, is you put out a little video giving some tips for people doing a lot of work in video. And at the moment, we see that most of the corporate organizations that are still working have now switched from face-to-face meetings and conferences to everything's on video on Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and other platforms are available. If I was doing this for the BBC, I'd have to say that. And we see the politicians carrying out a lot of work by video and everything else. And again, as a former intelligence officer, the one thing I find fascinating is looking at all the different backgrounds and the number of offices I've seen, the number of kitchens I've seen, the number of people, politicians sitting there supposedly doing their work, interacting with Parliament in their bedroom. And I go back to your video and your video tips, because they all seem to be staring down at their screen and all the rest of it. It seems a little amateurish. So go on, again, for the listeners, give us a synopsis of that little video, the tips that people should be looking at as they're going about normal business using modern technology in these difficult times?
Sure. I mean, it's just something that I filmed quickly using my webcam, but there's a few simple things that for people that are using Zoom or that, whether it's a broadcast or just chatting to business colleagues or friends, that they can sort of tips that they can follow. The first one is lighting. A lot of people have their laptops or their computers quite near a window, and the key thing is to have the light facing you, not behind you. And you'll find that a lot of webcams will also adjust the aperture. So if you've got a bright light source behind you, you appear very dark. So make sure that the light is facing you and not behind you. The second one, everyone seems to have their laptop screen tilted up on their table and they're just staring up their nostrils.
Yes,
And
I
it's
know.
really not.
It's not a it's not a pleasant
Everyone.
sight.
No, especially if you've got a double chin, and it's not a flattering angle for anybody. And as a cameraman, I always make sure that my lens is slightly above the eye line, so I'm slightly looking down on the person, and it's a lot more flattering.
Yeah, I forgot to
So,
pay you a fiver for that, and thank you when we're doing the script all filming.
so the top tip. I mean, I jokingly found we had a couple of kitchen towels that were a really good height, actually, just to get to put the laptop on. But anything you can do, some books, anything you've got around the home. We don't have yellow pages anymore, but they would have been good. To try
Yeah.
and get the lens at the same height as your eyes, at least, so that we're not looking up your nose. The next tip would be I'd suggest standing up, especially if you're giving any form of business presentation, or even if you're a journalist doing a presentation to your studio. You naturally talk much better, you present much better if you're stood up and not sort of hunched over.
Hmm.
So if you're able to get that eye line and do that. And you obviously mentioned the background. I don't think that most people watching care about what books you read. Well, maybe they do, but I don't. Or what kitchen floor you've got. If you're able to have a neutral background, a plain wall or a curtain or something that's a bit more sort of professional and doesn't bring your own personal living space into the broadcast, I think that's probably a preferred option. And I suppose the last main one is well, audio and connection. Audio, if you've got any form of headset mic you can plug in. Most webcams, they pick up the sound of the room echo in the audio, which sounds pretty naff. So if you've got a headset, even if it's just like an Apple headset with microphone or something similar, a built-in microphone in your headset, that will probably increase the audio quality. And finally, connection. Try not to connect using your Wi-Fi, especially if you're in a house with teenage kids that are streaming their gaming or that are chatting to their mates on
Yes.
video calls. A wired connection is always preferable and will always give you a stabler connection.
Yep.
And the broadcasters will advise you that. And that's sort of my 5 tips, which has actually taken longer than a minute. Watch the video because I do it in under 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's a good video, and what I'll do is I'll put a link to the video in the blurb underneath the podcast and bits and pieces. Yeah, it's interesting on the audio side of things. I do quite a bit, but Zoom that we're on at the minute, as you can probably see, I've got a really weird virtual background that sort of isn't quite perfect, but at least it distracts from the horrors in the room. But when I want to do something else, I've got on the professional side, I've got a pull-up banner that I can put behind me. That allows me to show different things, and I'm gobsmacked that our politicians don't have a sort of pull-up banner with their constituency details on there, because that would be advertising who they are, be advertising their political party and everything else, and would fit within the rules of everything else that's going on. And
well, the only person I've seen that does that was Peston, and Peston had a pull-up banner when he was asking questions in the updates, and he was promoting that. But he only did it for one broadcast. I think someone probably told her it was too much.
Well,
but,
I think
right.
he probably got told off. And on the audio side, because I'm doing more and more podcasts, the one thing I'm finding about people who are using headphones and Apple headphones and all the rest of it is they tend to sit there and be moving around all the time. So the audio goes loud and quiet and all the rest of it because their microphone is moving around away from their mouth. So if it could be held in one position, as I'm sort of doing at the moment, it makes the sound quality a bit better.
I use a Bluetooth headset with like you'd have in a call center with a little boom. It's obviously all wireless.
Yep.
And I think it was £15 on Amazon. And I have one in the van that I use for calling on the road, and it cuts out all the van noise. I don't have to shout in the van, and I use this one for calls like this and walking around the house so that I don't have to hold a phone up against my ear all the time.
Yeah.
So you can get pretty good, inexpensive solutions to help with the audio. On the background side of things, Zoom obviously allow you to add a virtual background, which is what you're doing. And Skype allows you to blur the background.
Yeah.
Again, it mixed sort of success with, with that, depending on the background and the lighting. Or if you're bald, I don't suggest doing any of the virtual backgrounds because it changes the shape of your head, as I well know. So.
Well, yes, and don't wear a green shirt. Is another one?
No, there is that.
Which is quite funny. So come on, when you're watching all of this, and you're watching the politicians, and you're watching the presenters, and you're watching some of the corporate interactions that are going on from senior professors or senior business leaders who know stuff. What are the real horrors that you're seeing?
Pretty much some of the examples I've put in the video. I mean, I think people have opened their eyes to it a bit more now since it's been going on. I think the broadcasters have been sending tutorial videos or tips on how to do it, and I've seen a massive improvement in the camera angles and the lighting conditions. The audio's still a bit ropey, but I have seen improvements. But initially I saw one broadcast, which I won't mention the channel, but you couldn't see his mouth or his nose. Well, you saw the top of his nose, and the rest of it was just his ceiling.
Yeah,
and it was kind of eyes and the top of the head and lots of ceiling. I've seen broadcasts where they pause the video stream by accident and it's on a full screen in a TV gallery.
Oh dear.
I think they may be using FaceTime and they click away or something and it pauses the video.
Yeah.
I've seen all sorts of mistakes. But as I said, I think everyone's waking up to it. And, there's other people that have done sort of videos like mine they're around in the ether. And I think people are finally getting there.
Yeah. But that those are professional broadcasters that you're talking about, and it's the politicians that are out there, and more importantly the business leaders. There's no excuse for businesses not to be professional in this new online environment as they're interacting. Would you agree?
I would. I mean, it is such simple advice as well. As I said, it took me about an hour to shoot and edit that film, so it is very, very simple common sense when you're looking at your feedback shot of you on the screen. If you can't see yourself very well, if the image doesn't look flattering, do something about it. Get the laptop higher up, improve the lighting, improve the sound. And from a corporate sort of comms point of view, yeah, I mean, I think it's important for corporate communication that your image reflects how it would be in a real world environment. So if you're going to sit around a board table and board meeting and look presentable, you should do the same thing on a webcam.
Mm. Now, as well as being a freelance cameraman for TV channels and other bits and pieces, you've got another business move that you've gone into, and this could actually help people in this environment. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I run a company called Solo 16. Solo 16's primary role is, or primary business is live streaming, and it's kind of conferencing, outside broadcast, any type of event, from a simple single camera presentation right up to a big outdoor concert or something like that. We've covered all sorts of events, and at the moment we've had to diversify. We've had to look at how we can help event planners and organisations deliver their presentations or their events virtually. So we have a system whereby we send you a web link, and you come into the broadcast, a bit like Zoom, but you come into the broadcast with your webcam and your microphone. But then we mix the video and we incorporate videos, we incorporate PowerPoint slides, and it all looks incredibly slick and professional, much better than a multi-view Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
So we've kind of adapted with that technology for the business community. So it's changing times. I mean, we obviously lost 90% of all our pre-booked events and all our inquiries stopped almost overnight. So it's a terrible time for the event industry in general and our business. I just hope that people bounce back and appreciate what professionals can add to one of these broadcasts.
So as well as enabling a much better quality of online conference and online business meetings and everything else, do you also provide training tips for people, for the PR companies that are out there that are advertising, that are advising different companies, for company executives and all the rest of it? Could they get in contact with you for sort of training tips?
Yeah, they could. I mean, we don't offer one-on-one training for that kind of thing as such. It's something that we've been looking into with another company locally to us who provide training at the moment. We're looking at providing media training in general for anyone that has to face the media and isn't prepared for it, PR crisis management, that kind of thing, so that they've got the skills that they need to do that. What we have started doing more of is live streaming consultancy, where a venue who are streaming quite a bit decide that they want to install their own equipment. So we'll go in and we'll spec the kit that they need. We'll find out what their technical experience is. We'll then supply and install the equipment and train them how to use it. So it might be a private crematorium, it might be a place of worship, it might be a boardroom, whatever it is. And so we found that's quite a good sort of business line at the moment.
So if people wanted to get hold of you, because I can see the number of virtual conferences and virtual meetings growing or they've grown exponentially, but the people are looking at ways of trying to professionalize them. How do they get hold of you?
There's two ways. If you're looking at the business side of things, then you want to go to solo16.co.uk, solo16.co.uk. If you're looking for a cameraman as a sole entity to film something for you or to work with you in that capacity, then it's ukcameraop.co.uk.
Brilliant. And I'll put both those links again in the blurb. Tom, your tips have been fantastic. It's been a real pleasure talking to you on the Chatting with Ingram podcast series this morning.
You're welcome. Thank you.